Mathieu is a wealthy man who wants to travel from Seville to Paris. However, all the train tickets are sold out. So he's offered a ticket to Madrid instead, where he can catch a train to Paris. With no other options, he agrees and returns to his hotel. There he asks his butler to clean up his room, which has torn women's clothes and blood stains. On his way to the station, Mathieu witnesses a businessman being killed in a car explosion. So he decides to take a different route. When he arrives at the station, Mathieu and his butler board the train but sit in different compartments. Mathieu in the first carriage and the butler at the back. In his compartment, Mathieu meets some fellow travelers, including a psychologist, a judge, and a woman with a child. It turns out that they are all from France and somehow know Mathieu. A train is delayed, so a man decides to smoke in the hallway. While he's there, he sees a young woman who looks like she's been beaten, checking each carriage. The man asks the train conductor to open the toilet, and when the woman named Conchita gets closer, he suddenly pushes her away and pours a bucket of cold water on her. The train then leaves, but Conchita manages to jump onto the last carriage. The other passengers are curious about why this wealthy Frenchman acted this way, but they are too afraid to ask. Finally, a brave girl asks him, and he explains that pouring cold water on Conchita was actually the least severe thing he could have done to her. He implies that she deserves even worse, which makes everyone curious about the story behind their relationship. At first, Mathieu doesn't want to share his story, but eventually he decides to explain how he met Conchita and what happened between them. It all began when Mathieu visited his cousin at the courthouse and invited him to his home. During dinner, Mathieu noticed the new maid Conchita. She seemed inexperienced and clumsy, not even knowing how to properly serve wine. That evening, Mathieu asked his butler to bring Conchita to his bedroom. During their conversation, Conchita revealed that she didn't enjoy working as a maid but had to do it to support her mother. She was only 18 years old and still wanted to have fun. At some point, Mathieu kissed the shy Conchita, but this frightened her, and she quickly left the room. In the morning, Conchita left Mathieu's house. It turned out that she had disappeared without taking any payment for her work. There was no way to contact her because she had been hired through an ad, and no one had her phone number or home address. Several months later, Mathieu traveled to Switzerland. While walking in a park, he was robbed by a thief who stole 800 francs from him and then disappeared. Mathieu thought about reporting the robbery to a police officer but decided it wouldn't help. Later, while having lunch at his hotel, Mathieu unexpectedly ran into Conchita. She confessed that the robbers were actually her friends, and they had all come to Switzerland for concert performances. However, they ran out of money and resorted to desperate measures like robbery to survive. Instead of getting angry, Mathieu let them keep the stolen money, but in return he asked Conchita for her home address. After returning to Paris, Mathieu goes to visit Conchita's home in the outskirts of the city. Conchita's mother greets him warmly and thanks him for the financial help he has given to her daughter. She explains that her husband died a long time ago, leaving them with only debts, but they have always earned an honest living without begging or humiliating themselves. After saying this, the mother leaves, allowing Conchita and Mathieu to talk alone. Conchita admits that she doesn't like doing household chores like cleaning or cooking, and she doubts she would make a good wife. However, she also confesses that she is genuinely in love with Mathieu, although she feels a bit uncomfortable about the age difference between them. During their next meeting, Conchita practices a dance and her guy friend was playing the guitar. After the rehearsal, she and Mathieu are alone. Conchita lets Mathieu see her in her underwear and even sit on his lap. They kiss, but Conchita stops Mathieu, saying she's afraid of his persistence and has never been with a man before. Mathieu, wanting to show his commitment, invites Conchita's mother to his home and offers her money so that they can move in with him. He eagerly prepares to meet Conchita, but when she arrives, it's not her but her friend who brings a letter. The letter reveals that Conchita has learned about the money, and doesn't want to see Mathieu anymore because she doesn't want to be treated like a thing that can be bought. Mathieu tries to make things right with Conchita by hurrying to her home, but he finds out she has left and may not return. At a restaurant, he tells his cousin about his troubles. When they leave, the cousin spots Conchita working as a coat check attendant, not wanting to bother Mathieu. The cousin points her out and quickly leaves. Mathieu apologizes for his earlier behavior and invites Conchita to dinner. Conchita quits her job and accepts Mathieu's dinner invitation. After dinner, they go to Mathieu's house, where Conchita sees a new attempt on the lives of the wealthy. Mathieu has prepared a room for her, but she refuses to stay there because it was once the bedroom of Mathieu's deceased wife. A maid quickly sets up a second bedroom for them to use. When they prepare for bed, she lets Mathieu touch her but still refuses to have some action. Angry about her refusal, Mathieu tries to clap her, but she asks him to put out the candles. In bed, Mathieu attempts to turn on Conchita but struggles with her underwear, which is made of strong canvas and tied with numerous knots. After struggling for 10 minutes without success, Mathieu feels helpless and starts to cry. Conchita comforts him and asks him to be patient. They spend the next few days together growing closer. When Mathieu returns home, he reads about a new terrorist attack that has killed hundreds of people. Conchita goes to bed with Mathieu but continues to refuse to get clapped, only allowing him to touch her bombs. Their discussion is interrupted by the sounds of a car accident and gunshots outside. Conchita looks out the window and sees another crime taking place. Mathieu tries to get her back to bed, but Conchita remains firm in her refusal. Frustrated and feeling helpless, Mathieu drives Conchita into another bedroom. A few minutes later he hears the sound of a vase breaking. When he goes to check, he finds Conchita's friend in the room. Enraged, Mathieu kicks both Conchita and her friend out of the house. Time passes, but Mathieu still can't forget Conchita and is willing to go to great lengths to be near her. Not wanting to appear weak, he asks his cousin to use his connections to help. The cousin sends the police to Conchita's house, and she and her mother are deported back to Spain. To distract himself, Mathieu plans a trip to Singapore but changes his mind at the last moment and goes to Seville, hoping to find Conchita. While roaming in the city he meets Conchita. She was very happy to meet him, and he learns about the difficulties she faced. Conchita apologizes for her earlier behavior and invites Mathieu to a bar to watch her performance. Although Mathieu wants to kiss her, she turns away but allows him to put his arm around her and smell her hair. Later Mathieu watches Conchita's performance and is captivated by her beauty. After one dance, Conchita says she needs a break to avoid falling asleep on stage and will return in 30 minutes. A visitor mocks Mathieu, calling him a fool and suggesting he should go upstairs to see what Conchita is really doing. Mathieu goes upstairs and discovers Conchita dancing unclothed in front of a group of Asian men in a lounge. Mathieu confronts the men and drives them away. Conchita is upset by Mathieu's jealousy, explains that dancing is her passion and the only thing she truly loves and knows how to do. She tells Mathieu she is willing to give up everything to be with him, but she needs her own place. She hopes Mathieu will reciprocate her feelings. Mathieu, wanting to show his commitment, buys property and gives Conchita the keys and documents as a gift. Late at night he visits her, but Conchita not only refuses to let him in but also tells him she hates him. She reveals that the musician he saw with her is her lover and that they have been together for a while. Mathieu is shocked and doesn't believe her until Conchita proves her words by getting clapped by a musician right in front of him. Unable to handle the humiliation, Mathieu returns to his hotel, where robbers attack him, hit his driver on the head with a bat, and steal his car. The next morning Conchita visits Mathieu and tells him she is still a virgin. Conchita explains that what Mathieu saw was just a performance to test his feelings. She says the musician is just a friend and that there's nothing to worry about. Mathieu is tired of all the lies and mistreatment, doesn't believe her and hits her in the face. Conchita gives Mathieu a key and invites him to visit, but he's done with her. He leaves, buys 2 tickets to Madrid. Just as Mathieu's story seems to be over, Conchita enters his train compartment and pours a bucket of water on his head. They eventually make peace, and Mathieu returns to Paris. While Mathieu and Conchita are walking through a shopping center, they notice a wedding dress store where the saleswoman is repairing a bloody bride's dress. As they move away from the store, an explosion occurs, destroying the shopping center and killing everyone inside.